Hello and welcome to another Tuesday night Pell session. Tonight we're going to be discussing some of the techniques used to make Pell work slightly more interesting. Pell work is, by its nature, very repetitive. It's purely there to get you to practice the correct technique over and over and over again, so that when you get to an actual fight, you don't have to think about what you're doing. The actions are being drilled so often they just occur. This has the downside that Pell work can often become very boring. After you've done, say, your 100 days of 100 blows, you may be finding that just getting out there and motivated to hit the Pell for a bit of time becomes very difficult. There are some of the things that can make it a bit more interesting, and one of those is to make small games out of the Pell work. Like normally, what you should do on any Pell is mark where you consider the head, the body, and the knees of your opponents. That gives you something to aim for. This helps in the general form and throwing of the shots, in that no longer are you aiming for just a low section of the Pell, you're aiming for just above the leg. Likewise for the head and the body, you're aiming for a specific spot on the Pell. This is important once you've got your actual technique down, that it gives you other things to aim for, such as accuracy. Now, that can keep you entertained for a little while, but unfortunately, it won't last forever. Again, once you're getting rough accuracy going, you'll get bored again and you'll need to up the game. For this, I recommend a spare piece of rattan that you've sawn off. This is an old sword that I've sawn both sides off because it got very pulped, and I've added an elasticated band to it. In this case, it's an old Oki strap, but really I would actually recommend just some elasticated band itself. With this, you can add it to the Pell at different heights and at different positions, and this actually gives you more targets and more zones to practice things on the Pell with. For example, placing it on the Pell like so, you now have a target for actually practicing throwing along the lines of things like shields and swords, so that you can actually practice changing it to different angles and practice throwing so that you're actually traveling along the line of the stick to hit specifically above the stick or specifically below the stick. This improves your accuracy, and it can also give you a little bit more entertainment, as now, instead of there just being a mark on the Pell, you're now trying to just miss the stick and actually hit the Pell itself. Because of the elastication, you can change the angle quite easily and its position, and hence move around for other positions. An example of which is practicing when you're throwing a wrap. You want the stick out as if it's somebody's shield, and now you can practice different angles, different ways to get under the stick's position and actually still hit the Pell without knocking the stick. This gives great technique and great thought processes to actually get yourself moving, trying different angles, instead of just standing there against the Pell and firing the same shot over and over again. Another game I personally like to play, and one of my favorite, is once you've gotten pretty good at following the line of the stick, what you do is you now try and hit directly in line with the stick. So since this is an old Pell sword, the actual diameter of the stick is a standard sword width in SCA fighting. That means that if I can hit directly on the line of the stick, I have now shot for a gap which is exactly the size of my own sword. This means that I am not trying to get above a shield or below a sword. I'm now aiming for a gap the exact size of my own sword to be able to throw and get gaps in a real fight. Another reason that the stick with the little bit of elastication works quite well is you don't have to actually keep rearranging the stick, because the elastication and hitting it will cause it to move around the Pell for you. You can get into quite a tick-tock, one side, the other side kind of drill. However, the next thing to try is to double hit on the same side repeatedly to increase your accuracy. Now, just hitting the end of the stick is actually not that difficult. What is much more challenging and much more enjoyable as a kind of game to keep count is to hit directly along the line of the stick wherever it has moved to. This means that you have to actually swing your sword and hit directly on the end of the stick and drive it down its length. This will again cause the stick to move on the Pell, which means your next shot can't be for the exact same spot or the exact same angle. The stick will shift to a more vertical position, a more horizontal, up, down, so forth. And this again and again and again gives you a new zone to target for, a new thing to aim for, and if you're using the striking along the length of the stick, gives you a new angle you have to hit it at. Be very careful not to get too complacent and just rely on things like snaps. The whole idea of this drill is to actually include many, many shots. This means that, for example, if the stick is going very on an angle, tight angle vertically, that's a perfect opportunity to practice some of these pendulum shots so that you are stepping to the side and throwing with the tip going upwards into the stick itself. This represents throwing a shot, swinging it up and over and into your opponent's body. Basically, as long as you haven't attached the stick too tightly to the Pell, or too loosely, I must say as well, the randomness of the stick gives you a lot of options in just random angles and random shots to pick. It's much better than sitting there trying to think of the shots yourself to give you different targets, because it is truly random. Humans are terrible at coming up with random numbers, and so by doing it this way, you're relying on the fact that this stick is going to be moving every time, giving you somewhere to aim. The other thing to remember is, at the moment, this is at about my shoulder height, maybe a little bit lower. However, it is also quite easy to place the stick at various heights, which again allows you to practice various wraps and hand drops to get around and actually hit the stick. It is really one of my favorite games to play because it does develop some interesting shots, being able to flick and throw your hand out and come in at quite a tight angle to throw a shot. And you'll find that even though I've talked over quite far to get this, to get to the side of the Pell and to hit the stick there, I can use the reset and the flip of my own body to power the shot without resetting back to the other side. This allowed me to develop certain shots that I use in my own game where my hand stays out having gotten to one side of the person to then flick around to the opposite side with some quite good force. Practicing against the stick greatly improves your accuracy and makes for a much more enjoyable Pell session. This week's video is a little bit short. I am coming to the end of the lockdown, hopefully, with fighter practice starting up next week. We will be having a session of armoring and basically social get-together this Wednesday for those who are in the local area, with looking to actually start up full fighter practice next Tuesday. So if you're in the local area, I hope that you'll come along and have a bit of a biff again, and otherwise I hope you're doing okay wherever you are around the world. And I will catch you later. Bye.